everybody, I am Alphabird. Got a new beginner battle group deck for you today. We are looking at the 20th Panzer, and this is a really good one for new beginner, less experienced players. On the one hand, you look at it and you think, how can this deck stand up against the big heavy armor divisions it's going to come up against? But yeah, it does. You won't fight tank on tank against them, but it has the supporting weaponry to do it. It's a base game division. Everybody gets access to it. And if you're a beginner, new player, this is definitely a recommended division to start off with. It's a really good division. The top competitive players play it all the time. And it gets you used to fighting in a manner that doesn't just rely on big heavy tanks. And if you're going to fight in 1v1, then you need to get used to fighting without using just big heavy tanks. You need to make your wins, you need to make your money, your points, your kills most efficiently as possible. And most of the time that's using kind of low expensive units to take out big expensive units. And the 20th Panzer can definitely do that. So I thoroughly recommend this deck. I'm playing on the same patch as the previous video, except it's completely different this week. It's the other way around. We've had a fantastic time. So, you know, maybe it was more so to do with the 9th Cavalry on the patch that we're playing right now. But the 20th Panzer, yeah, definitely a good division. If you are a beginner, a new player, a less experienced player, or a casual player, I definitely recommend you can go into quick play with this deck and you can pick up victories. So let's have a look at the deck itself. Into the Recon tab, we don't actually have many options. The Alfgler can come in. They can't come in the SPWs. So there isn't really a useful vehicle for them if you're looking at other options for them. So you can kind of count them out, and there's only 1 point slot. The Recon slots aren't great, but the Panzer 3M's a really good vehicle. You have to fight with it at the right range. You need to use these APCR shells, so you need to fight at 1,000 meters. That will give you the 150 millimeters of penetration. If you rely on the AP shells, you can take out transports and light vehicles with it, but you can't take out enemy tanks realistically, because you're talking T-34s and Shermans generally, and with drop off at 1,500 meters, the penetration chance isn't going to be that great. So get them into APCR range, 1,000 meters, and look at that accuracy, especially at 3 stars. You're talking, what, 81% accuracy? 10 rounds a minute with 150 millimeters of penetration. The Panzer 3s in this game are really good. I don't mind that because not a lot of divisions get access to them, and it's kind of like a cool, unique unit, so I'm quite happy for that to be the case. But yeah, these Panzer 3Ms, really good vehicles. You could take them at 1 star to get 3 of them, but I think just take them at 2 star. Yeah, just take them at 2 star. If you're really desperate for that extra single tank, then yeah, you could drop them to 3 star. Let's go into the infantry tab. Now, I will say here that this infantry lineup is not going to be the same as what experienced top level players play. I've tried to make this infantry lineup easy for those of you out there that are maybe more casual players, maybe new players to the game. I've tried to keep things easy, keep things simple, and that's what this infantry tab is all about. So I'll run through the tab and then I'll talk about the other things. We've got every single unit in here in half tracks, and for beginners that's really helpful because you're much less likely to lose these units on the way into the battlefield to random snipes. I mean, you're much less likely now anyway because of the range changes and the fact that the M42 can't snipe at 2 kilometers. But still, the Russians have those PTRD rifles, and if you're not careful, you will lose a lot of units in standard trucks. So that is one thing, one advantage to using the Panzergrens in this deck. You get a hell of a lot of half tracks. So we got 93 units of infantry, so that means 93 half tracks. And half tracks are pretty powerful. The downside, it's expensive. This is a fairly expensive infantry tab, so you definitely don't go out there spamming infantry units. That's not how this deck works at all. You've got to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more cautious, a bit more sparingly with your infantry units, and you back them up with your supporting weapons, your tanks, the units in the support tab, even the Flak 4188 in the anti-air tab, your artillery and your air force, they all back up the infantry in this deck. The other thing about only having Panzergrens, the other downside is you can't fight with these in close quarters. These are not close quarter combat units. These are long range infantry units. They fight best at arguably they fight best at 500 meters, where the carabiners and the MG42 can both get involved. But they're just as adequate firing at 750 meters, because, you know, those MG42s are good machine guns. So, you know, they are arguably just as good in a standoff fight at 750 meters. So use these guys at long range infantry engagements. You don't want to be running up to Tanko de Saniki. You don't want to be running up to Flammenwerfer or Ognomachiki or Avtomachiki. You know, you don't get these in CQC combat. So one of the downsides is you can't really enter heavy forests with this deck. But then you're not supposed to enter heavy forest with this deck. This is an armoured deck. The best place for it is cities and open ground, and not really big cities either. Play around the open ground with this deck and you'll do just fine. So that is something to be aware of. Let's just run through the units in particular. We've got, again, I'm trying to make this really easy for you. We've got one Panzer Grenadier with a standard loadout, although this one has the DP, the captured Russian unit, although we do have the other Panzergrens later on. And you have one Panzergren with a Panzerfaust. One card of each in each phase. So a card of Panzergrens with the DP in A, a card of Panzergrens with the Panzerfaust in A. Card of standard Panzergrens in B, card of Panzergrens with the Panzerfaust in B. Standard card in C, Panzerfaust card in C. You see how that works? So it's nice and easy. Generally, especially in A phase, use your Panzergrens with the Panzerfaust very sparingly. You only get 6 of these and they're 40 points. So you have to be careful where you put them. You really only want one of these in each position that you're fighting in, and the rest is to be made up by the Panzergrens with the DP, okay? And keep your Pioneer Führers with your infantry as well. It's really important to up-vet your infantry. In B and C phase, that doesn't matter as much because you get a lot more Panzergrens. So you get 12 in Panzergrens with the Panzerfaust. You get 12 in B phase and you get 18 in C phase. So you can use them a little bit more frequently. But in A phase, you are very limited on those Panzerfaust. So use them limited as well. Now, the reason I chose the Pioneer Führer over the Panzergrenadier and the Panzergrenadier is the Panzerfaust is you have got Panzerfaust on your Panzergrens, and you can only get 2 with the Panzerfaust, whereas you can get 3 Pioneer Führer. So that ultimately advantages the Pioneer Führer. Now, the difference between the Panzergrenadier and the Pioneer Führer is smoke or HE grenades. Personally, my feeling is, as a new player, especially as a new player, you're not going to be using smoke on your infantry. You're just... If you are, fantastic, well done. Bring in the Panzergrenadier. It might actually have you more utility. But generally, all of the new players that I see, there's just too much micro to do everywhere across the battlefield, too much to concentrate on. It's rare to see new players using smoke on their infantry leaders. So I'd rather, you know, you put an infantry leader into a position, and if you forget about it, it's got a HE grenade. So it can still defend itself pretty well and help out your forces. So I'd rather that than give you a smoke grenade that you're never going to use just because you're not used to using them on your infantry. So that's the reason I'm making that decision, okay? This is all set up, as far as I'm concerned, to be both flexible, versatile, and best, you know, beginner friendly. Now, the other choices in this infantry tab, and here's where a more advanced and experienced player would definitely start to put in other units. They're all good choices, but they just mean that it's more effort and more micro. The Ersatztruppen and the Osttruppen are really good, cheap infantry squads, but they're disheartened. So they suffer suppression a lot more, and they'll automatically fall back, which means that you start to lose the ground that you've got. And as a new player, you might not understand what your Ersatztruppen and Osttruppen are there for. They're there just to be cheap squads to get in the way of the enemy and to soak up damage while the rest of your units do everything. And I think as a new player, a lot of the time, new players will think that the Ersatztruppen and Osttruppen are there to do fighting, and then they're not really there for that job. That's where the Panzergrenadiers are there to do fighting, and the half-tracks and the other units. The Ersatztruppen and Osttruppen are kind of there just to be bodies in the way. So, although it's really cheap, and you can get 2 of the Ersatztruppen for 1 Panzergrenadier, and you can get 18 of them in A, I think as a new player, I think it's just easier for you to just get used to using Panzergrens. And then when you're much more confident with what you're doing and your micros at a better level, yeah, then add in the Ersatztruppen and the Osttruppen. That's why I'm making these decisions when I'm setting up the decks for you. Okay, Stosstrup, another really good, you know, squad. But in the hands of a beginner, you're going to lose them a lot easier. These guys don't fight except in CQC. So yeah, we don't have CQC squads, but you only get 6 of them in A phase. It's not really going to give you a massive advantage fighting in forests. So what will happen is you'll go and you'll throw these 6 squads into a forest and you'll lose them, and then you're out of CQC infantry and you can never enter that forest again. So what's the point in even going to the forest in the first place? You know, surround the forest, go around the forest, find another way to fight those units, use some artillery, use an aircraft, you know, find another way to deal with it. That's what this deck is all about. Finding another way to deal with it. And you've got lots of other ways. So the Stosstruppen, they just become a unit that gets lost really easily for new players. That's my feeling. For advanced players, they can be handled really well. And they can get multiple kills. Pioneer SVT are a unit that I'd consider putting in. But in the end, I just wanted to keep things simple, like Panzergrens. I just wanted to keep things really simple for you guys in the infantry tab. So that's why I didn't put the Pioneer SVT in. But yeah, they are actually a really good unit, and they have the frag grenades. I would normally have this in a deck, and you see me put it in other decks as well. So you know this is a good unit. I just wanted to make things easy for you. And then finally, we have the Sturm Pioneer. Again, these are CQC units, and they can be really, really strong. But if you vet them to 2 stars, where I think they fight best, you're really limited on numbers. So you have to micro them really effectively to get good kills with them. Again, they're really limited in range. They have to be used in the right circumstances. Heavy forests is one thing. If you try and use these in cities, they can get mowed down while trying to cross the street. So my feeling is, as a beginner player, just forget the Sturm Pioneer for now until you get really good with your infantry micro, and then start using them. And you do really well with them, and the top players do play with them and they do really well. But I think as a new player, you're just going to lose them before they even get into battle. And then you've lost 25 points where you could spend an extra 15 and just get a standard Panzergren that you're much less likely to lose. So that's why I made that decision. Hopefully that explains the infantry tab. I just tried to make things easy for you. And this is still a good infantry tab. It is expensive. You're going to have to be wary. And actually, there's a lot of infantry here. You're not going to run out of infantry on this deck. That is for sure. There is a lot here. A phase is a lot more difficult. You could perhaps consider swapping maybe this standard Panzergren card or this Panzergren, probably this Panzergren with the Panzerfaust, I would suggest. You could put this in A phase instead of in C phase. To give you some extra Panzerfaust and just give you some extra reliance. So that could be a change you make. I'm not going to make it right now, But yeah, if you are struggling for infantry in A phase, swap that Panzergren with the Panzerfaust and put it in A phase. Okay, onto the tank tab. You've got some good tanks in here, although you might not realise it. Panzer 3Ls, a bit like the Panzer 3Ms, are fantastic tanks. 2 stars. We don't... Let me see whether I can get up the... Here we go, look. It's the same accuracy. Like, what was it? 81% accuracy, 10 rounds a minute, but you have to fight in that APCR range at 1,000 meters. If you do, these tanks will get you kill after kill after kill. They will do the job. They will definitely do the job for you. They can take out some big heavy tanks. They can trade up very well. So, Panzer 3Ls are really good. Panzer 4H Führer, they're kind of there in the early phase to support your Panzer 3Ls. Give them some extra veterancy. Get them up to 3 stars. Can you even get them to 3 stars? Am I making this up? Do you know what? I'm getting too much war game in my head. Of course you can't. But the Panzer... Wait, am I just... No, I'm right, aren't I? I'm just confusing myself here. I'm confusing myself. Your Panzer 4H Führer give you that extra command. I think it is important to get command. And there is a choice here. You could add in the Panzer T-34 42s. They are faster, I think, which is a big advantage over the Panzer 4H. They are a lot faster. Well, the gun isn't anywhere near as good. And the Panzer 4H, I think, is just worth it. So I'd rather just put the Führer in. 2 tanks, you know, 7 tanks in total in A phase. You've got other supporting equipment you can bring out as well. So if you run out of tanks, look to your other tabs because you've got some great equipment. We'll come on to it soon. And you've also got the big boy, the boy to Stalin in A phase. We're on flatline income. You are going to have to save up to bring this one in. But a lot of the time, new and casual and less experienced players, and I myself, and even pros at times, will float points. So if you're floating points, then... Boy to Stalin is the tank that you could bring in at that time. But just be careful. Don't just float points and then order in a Boy to Stalin. Because if you're floating points... Oh. Yep. If you're floating points because you're not bringing the reinforcements in and you start losing stuff, then you need adequate reinforcements. Don't just then think, oh, I've floated points and bring the Boy to Stalin in. That will solve all my problems. Because it won't solve all your problems. But it is definitely a great tank. You need to keep this thing fighting at very long range, 2,000 meters. They've just buffed the AP shells, although I believe things might change slightly. But it isn't going back to how it was, so you've got a lot more shells. In fact, I think the Boy to Stalin was always like this. It's the Russian variant. Variants? It's the Russian IS-2s that have just been buffed in AP shells. So, in terms of AP shells, you don't have to worry about resupplying your tanks or resupplying your IS-2 in this division. Just keep it at 2,000 meter range, put it in a nice position. Don't leave it there forever because at some point someone will buy artillery, standard artillery, rocket artillery, a cluster plane, and they'll get it in the sky. But you know, you could leave it in a spot, look away for a couple of minutes, come back, move it slightly, you know, move it to a better spot. Just make sure you aren't leaving it in the same spot forever. And then in B phase, you've got some 2-star Panzer 4Hs, Hearth, the leader, the ace, an understated skin. I love the little icon at the back and the what looks like an elephant to me. I don't know whether there's a history as to why that is on there, but yeah, it's cool. But anyway, yeah, Panzer 4Hs, I think I've spoke about them before. 2-star, they do perform the best at 2-star. 50% accuracy, 10 rounds a minute. It's really good. You could drop it to 1-star if you want it. I wouldn't go below 1-star because you don't need 10 tanks in B phase on flatline income. You do not need 10 tanks in B phase on flatline income. I don't really think you need 7 tanks. There's other equipment you could bring in, and there's always the Boy to Stalin. You might not be able to afford that in A phase, and often you won't. I've played games, and a lot of people have played games where they don't even buy the Boy to Stalin. And there was someone I played a competitive game against. It was a few seasons ago. He didn't even have the Boy to Stalin in the deck. So yeah, I mean, 5 tanks is enough as far as I'm concerned for B phase. And so make them 2 stars and use those Panzer IV H's how they are used best. And then in C phase, again, I've put you in 2-star Panzer IV H's. Now this one, I think you could drop in terms of numbers, because 7 in C phase isn't the most. If you get drawn out into a really long deck, a long game, which can happen with flatline at times, although that's more likely if it's flatline versus flatline. But even if it's like flatline versus Vanguard or Maverick, where you just manage to hang on, those games can turn into very long games, because you won't have a big income advantage in C phase. You'll have an advantage, but it won't be like an everlasting, unstoppable force advantage. So you could drop this to 1 or even 0 stars if you're really struggling. You have got other options. You could bring in the Panzer IVGs. But I still think the Panzer IV H's are your best tanks out of these 3 that remain, so stick with them. You could add in a 3rd card, but I actually don't think you need to. The supporting equipment is really good in this deck, so there's no need to bring in another card. You could become a little bit more efficient, where I've set up to be user-friendly. So, for instance, this supply truck, you could change so that SK-18s... No, they do have the multi and Muns. We do have some Elliott FH-18Ms here that could use supply. I mean, you could remove the supply truck. You could change the artillery round, which would give you some more points to maybe fit another tank in. But I think this is fine. Start off using this deck. You can win with this deck. No shadow of a doubt in quick play. So just try it. And then once you play a few games, adjust it. There's no problems with you adjusting the deck. But I'm trying to make things friendly and usable and versatile for you guys. Okay, into the support tab. It's got a great support tab. And there's loads of stuff that could still get taken. We got the Flammenwerfers. They're always going to be in the squad. In 1v1, they're always going to be there. We got MG42s. It's pretty much a must right now in the game. But I think that's a good thing, because the MG42 is like one of the iconic German weapons. So it definitely should be a must, almost, in a way. And then we got the Grill. This thing is really good. It is really good. But sometimes you need to babysit it a bit. I'm not always fantastic with this weapon, I'll admit. I can lose them quite often and not get 60 points worth of value out of them. But when you chain those kills with this Grill, man, this thing can do wonders. It fights at 2 kilometers. You want to keep it at 2 kilometers. I've given you them in A phase because I think having one available in A phase, I mean, 60 points is not that expensive, really. So you can bring them out quite effectively. Although I wouldn't really want you bringing out all 4 of them in A phase. Generally, you want 1 in A phase, maybe 2. But I think if you're buying more than 2 in A phase, then you're limiting your use of other forces, or you're being lackluster. I'm searching for the words. You know, you're not effectively using your other forces. So I would try and stick to 1, maybe 2 of these in A phase, and then use the other remaining ones in B and C phase. Now in this deck, I've given you the Panzer IIIN in C phase. This is to take over from the Grill. So if you lose the Grills in A phase and B phase, you can then go to the Panzer IIINs, and they do kind of the same job, really. The Panzer IIINs, they are there to fight against infantry. That's their job, okay? 16 rounds a minute at 2 stars. They can put some decent HE damage down quite quickly onto infantry. That's their main purpose. They can fight... No, they can't fight against AT guns. They used to be able to, because they used to fight at 2,000 meters, but obviously things have changed. So you don't want to fight these against AT guns, unless it's like an M42 gun, really, but you won't be finding those in C phase. They are there to fight against infantry. I mean, this deck has so many options to fight against infantry. Once you've played with it a few times, I think you'll realise you can take out... You won't... limited with infantry here. Use your infantry to spot the enemy and then fire on it with 93 half tracks, with all of your tanks, with grills, with MG42s, with Panzer 3Ns, with Pak 40s, with Marder 1s, with Flak 41 88s, with all of your artillery and your aircraft. You've got so many options to take down enemy infantry. You don't really need to fight heavily infantry on infantry. That's not what the deck's all about. So that's what these units are here for. That's what the Panzer 3N is here for. It's to fight against infantry. It can actually do a decent job against tanks, especially Shermans and T-34s. T-34 76 more so than 85s. But I think it can do decent against 85s as well. Also Panzer 4Hs and Stug 3s, I think, in the mirror matches, because heat shells, they don't lose penetration over range. 100mm of penetration. You've got that at the full 1250 meter range, so no drop off. But you need to make sure you're fighting at 1250 meter range and make sure you're using the HE shells. Don't even think about using these AP shells. In C phase, these are only really there to pick off enemy half tracks in mirror matches, really, because Russians don't really use that many half tracks. So yeah, you need to be, if you're fighting an enemy tank with this thing, 1250 meter range. Okay, we talked about the MG42. We just mentioned the commander. You could quite legitimately swap commanders. I've put the BEF Panzer 3K in here more for a flavour aspect. It is 10 points more than a commandant, but you do get a Panzer 3. It can fight like a Panzer 3. Well, it doesn't have the APCR shell, so it can't really fight like a Panzer 3. I kind of put this in for a bit of flavour. You could quite easily swap them in for a commandant. I probably should do that. If you're really against this change, like, this is supposed to be friendly for casual, new, less experienced players, and the right option would be to take a commandant, a commandant, because it costs you 10 points less. It is definitely better for you. But I just feel like, let's get some flavour in the deck for all you casual players out there that like a bit of flavour, especially if you're going to play against the AI. Yeah, so I put the BEF Panzer 3K in there, but you could quite easily just hop that out and put in the commandant. And then we got some supply trucks in B phase. I'm pretty much always going to do this just to make sure that you've got supply, and you've got supply. The big thing about supplying this deck is it can fix up that Void to Stalin. If you get a critical, like a bailout or a weapon jam, gun jam, tracks broken, you can bring in an Opel Blitz munition to fix that critical back on your tank. Okay, moving on to the anti-tank tab. I started things off with the Panzer Vernichtungen. I chose the Panzer Vernichtungen over the Panzer Schreck because they're a stronger squad. They've got 6 men rather than 2 men. You do lose out. You do lose 1 man, and you don't get them in the bikes, although the bikes actually, I think, are the same speed as the horse. So that's why I made this decision. Once you become better with your micro of AT infantry and Panzer Vernichtungs and Panzer Schrecks, generally, most experienced players will just buy the Panzer Schrecks. They're a little bit more stealthy, they're cheaper, you can sneak them around a little bit more easily. But as a new player, when you're microing your Panzer Schrecks, you're probably not going to be as efficient and as good, and you might throw them out the forest a little bit by accident. And if that happens to your Panzer Schreck, they're going to get decimated immediately. Those 2 men are going to die. Whereas your Panzer Vernichtungs, you could lose 3, maybe 4 men, and you've still got a couple left there. The Panzer Schreck can still be used. So that's why you've got the Panzer Vernichtungs here. Now, you've got loads of choices in this deck. And you've even got stuff that I would always take that's been left out. So, yeah, you've got loads. You've got tons. Your only AT gun in A phase is the Pak 40. I think this is a slight limitation here, but you do have 2 Flak 41 88mm that can also act as an AT gun at 2,000 meters with very high penetration. It is expensive though, but you can still afford it on flatline income. So yeah, that is a bit of a limiting factor with this deck. I feel like you could try and bring in another card of pack 40 would probably be my advice, but you could also bring in the 76.2 mil. But the difference between the captured version here is that there's no APCR shells on this. So I would advise another card of pack 40. I'm not quite sure you're going to use 6 of them. So maybe even if you do bring in 2 cards, upvetting them to 1 star. So you've got 4. But then that's only 1 more, isn't it? So in this case, I've decided, you know, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful with your AT guns. But as a new, less experienced player, casual player, getting used to the game, being more careful with units is a good thing. Because, yeah, you might lose a few games while you're trying to be more careful with units, but it's going to benefit you a lot more in the long run. And that's what's important. So, yeah, just be careful with your pack 40s, but these are a fantastic AT gun, one of the very best AT guns in the game. So certainly you've got the equipment to do some massive work for you, and that's why it's in B phase as well. So, you know, nothing else to be said there. A and B phase. I did originally put a card in A, B and C phase, but then I was like, there's no way you're going to use 16 pack 40s. So then I thought, well, maybe you vet them. But then I was still like, even 8 pack 40s is a lot for a 1v1 game. So I didn't put them in. But you've got the pack 43 88 instead. Yeah, it's a 88 mil. I mean, an amazing gun. These are in B phase, you get 4 of them. These are really here to deal with heavy tank divisions. You want to use your 88 mils for heavy tank duties. Your pack 40s are kind of relegated to trying to use the APCR at 1,500 meters and even get side shots. But your 88s at 2,000 meters, they will do the job for you. And your flak 41 88s as well. I would generally try and rely on your flak 41s before your 88 mils. The reason for that is this is an anti-air piece, and it's a good anti-air piece. So it's doing 2 jobs in essence. It's doing your anti-air and you can do anti-tank with it. But the downside is, you know, you can't really hide it. You can't really hide it as well as you can hide a pack 43 88 mil. And it's a little bit more expensive. But, you know, probably 7 times out of 10, I would lean towards choosing a flak 41 instead of the pack 43. But they're still there. And you've got loads of these 88 mils. You've got 4 there. You've got another 4 in the flak 41s in B phase and 2 in A phase. So that's 10 88 mils. That's a lot of heavy tanks you can take out with this division. So this is what I meant earlier about you've got to find a different way to do things. You don't fight with this division tank on tank. When you're encountering heavy tanks, you don't fight with your tanks. You fight with your pack 43s, with your pack 40s, and with your flak 41 88 mils. That's how this division works. Finally, we get a card of Marder ones in C phase. And again, I would happily pick this unit, the other unit of this. And you could lower the number you're getting. I just think in C phase, you know, you might not use all of those. And you've still got all of the pack 43s. You've still got the flak 41s. So you've still got other stuff to buy. This is the other reason why those Panzer 4Hs are kind of 2-star. Because you can also bring in these Marder ones. So effectively, you've got, what, 13 vehicles there that can do the same job. The Marder ones that you do want to use at long range, 1,500 meters if possible, or 1,750 meters. This main gun can still do a really good job at 1,750 meters. It depends what you're fighting against. It depends what tank you're fighting against. But because these are open top, they have an aim time buff, so they aim faster than a closed top tank. So you can generally get the first shot in. And usually you want to go for that first shot. You want to get it in a position where it only fires at 1,500 meters. You want to get that first shot in. It's pretty accurate, especially if it's 2 stars. So let me try and bring up the bonuses. Yeah, I mean, what, 68% accuracy? You're likely to hit on that first shot and then just back it away. Just back it away. That's how you use Marder ones. On the edge of light forests especially is where they thrive. So Marder one's great unit. A really good unit. Okay, we've kind of spoken about the anti-air tab. The Flak 41s are great, and the Flak 43 37mm, again, a great German AA unit. This is a combination that is in a lot of decks, and a lot of decks that I will put together for you use this combination. I mean, it's just tried and tested. It's perfect. So just no need to mess with it, really. Then we're into the artillery tab. So the battery Fuhrers, they are B-phase infantry leaders. Again, they come in the half track so that you don't lose them on the way onto the battlefield. So that's those spoken with. The off-map, I mean, it's a staple for 1v1. We talk about it all the time. 220mm is fantastic. You could use this in A or wait to see if you really want to, but I feel like B is the most versatile for you. So that's why I've chosen it in B. Now, the other thing is this is 150 points. So you aren't going to get this every single tick. You've got to save up 25 points of income in order to get this off map, but off map's definitely worth it. And you'll see me in a lot of games that I play kind of saying I need off map, because that's how 1v1s work. You always need off map. Right, let's talk about the LEFH-18M. So I was considering units to use here, and this is where a lot of players will have differing opinions. I decided to go with the LEFH-18M 105mm. Most people will opt for a half track, but the LEFH is slightly better than the half track, although not that much better. The half track is much more maneuverable, so that's why most people kind of opt for it. But the LEFH-18M is not restricted on range, so although the further away you fire in, the dispersions get a lot greater, you don't have to have a mortar in the area to do the job for you. It has the radio, so it can combine, just like the mortar, with your infantry leaders and use those radios to give you a more accurate shot. The downside, it doesn't have as much ammunition. Well, on balance, I just thought as a new player, it was better off spending 75 points on an LEFH-18M than 100 points on a mortar half track. And one of the upsides is, if you do buy this to kind of use as a mortar or half track, like, you know, kind of in that early artillery role, they can immediately go on counter battery. If somebody comes in with more artillery, you just stick them on counter battery. You know, you don't have to worry too much about it. So later in the game, I brought in these SK-18s. Again, these are because they're fantastic at counter battery. So it's just really easy for you guys to just bring these in, stick them on counter battery, and then you don't have to worry anymore. And then if you are in a really long game and you think you've destroyed the enemy's artillery with counter battery, well, then stick them on fire at will. So I'm just trying to make things easy for you. And using these LEFHs mean that if it does turn into a big artillery duel, because the game goes really long, well, you've got 6 good artillery pieces rather than 4 and then a couple of mortars that aren't really effective in a long artillery slugfest. There are loads of other options you've got here though, and so you could quite easily personalize this tab. Finally, I'll talk about the Werfrahmen. This thing is really good. Well, it is just really good. Let me try and get the yeah, we'll just concentrate on the Werfrahmen. This thing is just really good. The rockets are really good. I mean, I keep saying it. It's true. It is true. Use this to counter enemy AA. Enemy, if you're mirror matching, Flak 41 88mm, these counter fantastically well. They counter enemy AA well. They counter enemy artillery well. They counter enemy big heavy tanks really well. They counter enemy cities and clumped up infantry in heavy forest really well. They're really good units. The problem is they are a little bit expensive at 140 points. So for flatline, you are going to have to save up. And they don't really do kind of counter battery as artillery. And the range, you know, you do have to be careful. If you order them across the battlefield to fire on a position like 5k across the battlefield, they will start to drive straight at that position. So if you're not careful, you might lose these. So do be a little bit careful when you're using them, but the payoff is definitely worth it. So that's why I've chosen the artillery tab, but like I said earlier, it could be open to changes here. I will just quickly mention with the SK-18s, I have mentioned earlier, but I've given you them with the Multia Mun supply truck. You can still afford them on flatline income. It gives you the supply with that artillery piece, so you don't have to worry. So I just did that for ease of use. Okay, finally we're on the air tab, and it's still quite a good air tab here. Despite all the other tabs being really good, it's still quite a good air tab. Now, you are restricted to only 2 stars on your ME-109G2 fighter planes, and you only get 1 card of these. But you do get 3 of them in A phase, and 3 fighter planes is generally enough for 1v1. Especially at 90 points. It's kind of cheap for a fighter. So, 3 is fine. You've also got the ME-109G2R1s with the single 250 kilogram HE bomb. These are fighter bombers, so if you do run out of those 3 ME-109G2s, yeah, they're not going to be as good, but they're still good. They're still fighters, so you can still use them in that fighter role. And then we got the Ju-87 D5 cluster plane. This is a great plane. It really is a great plane, and it gets shot down really easily. Don't get me wrong. You're probably going to be restricted to A phase and early B phase with this plane. But if you see a big tank rush or your enemy's brought in heavy tank, throw a Ju-87 D5 at it. 9 times out of 10 in 1v1, early on in A phase, they won't have brought AA. So you can get away with a Ju-87 D5 strike. In the first game I played, I brought in it was a really good game. It was a shame I didn't record it, but it was late at night. I was playing it and I was watching Twitch, and I was watching Tiger on Twitch in the background. And yeah, so I wasn't recording the session. It was a bit of a shame. I did lose the game, but it was really close. It was Maverick playing this exact deck against, sorry, I was playing Flatline with this exact deck against 15th Infantry playing Maverick. And it got really tight towards the end. Like, I was starting to recover flags. I only needed about 3 to 5 more minutes, and I would have brought it back to a 12-12 and then, you know, gone on to win the game. But there was a moment early on where he rushed the bridge on the left-hand side in Gora Kalawaria with like 3 Churchills, and I just selected 3 Ju-87 D5s and just threw them at those Churchills, and all 3 of them got kills, and it was just beautiful to see. I mean, it was probably a little bit of an expensive response, but these things are great. They really are great. You do have to be aware that they are going to get shot down really easily, so you can't rely on them forever. They are going to get shot down at some point. You can't rely on these forever, but if they get over that enemy tank and they haven't been, you know, hit by any kind of AA, guaranteed kill on every tank in the game, pretty much. I mean, it's really rare that you wouldn't get a guaranteed kill. Okay, I think that's the deck completely talked about. I'm going to show you some footage now of a good game that we played with this deck. Oh, and one thing to mention, I've not used all the activation points. So, yeah, I mean, the way that I set it up, I had 1 left over. So, I mean, you could get rid of the Panzer 3M to give you a point and then put it somewhere else. But, you know, you're restricted to Air Force and anti-air, and those Panzer 3Ms are really good. So, I mean, I would just leave it as it is. But, yeah, there you go. You don't always have to use up 50 activation points. Right, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed the game that I'm going to show you as well. And like I say, yeah, I definitely recommend this one to new, casual, less experienced players. It's a great base game division, and it really gets you used to fighting with an armored division and not always relying on your big heavy tanks, because there's always another way to get the job done. And that's the mantra for the 20th Panzer as far as I'm concerned. We are playing 20th Panzer on flatline income. We're up against the 2nd Guards Tank Corps on balanced income. So I'm going to have to try and attack from the start. Flatlining to balanced is not really very good. I'm going to try and make a play for these 2 flags. I think the right will be better off. I've got more armoured units. The left is just more pockets of forests, and my infantry don't fight in forests, so... yeah, not looking forward to that. I'm going to reallocate there, which means we're going to be a little bit absent in that centre. I might have to change things up.
gute Feuerstellung.
Not a great position for that MG, if I'm honest.
Fahrzeug bereit, Hauptmann.
Not too great. Okay, ooh, we see a T-34 in there. So we are going to want to get a Panzer up there. Let's see if we can get him across. Now, that means he might be able to side shot me. Bring this half track down. Ooh, an 85. Okay.
Das wird ein Kinderspiel. Ich habe hier das Kommando.
Lost sight of him.
Vorwärts, aber schließt die Flanken. Auf wen haben Sie es abgesehen? Sanitäter! Ihre Befehle, Herr Hauptmann.
Pankos.
Vorsichtig, Männer.
Try and get my Vinnictons out the way.
Wir geben auf. Der Motor überhitzt. Und ich ebenso.
Might try push on that town since the right hand side is definitely not working out right now. Ooh, he's got AA up there. Come on, you should be able to hit there. It's going to let him know there's a Vinnictons in the area though. Yeah, and he's backed off very successfully. Very annoying. Bring the grill forwards. Move my Panzergrens over to start off an attack. I'm a bit worried now because he has that right. Yeah, and he's just pushing straight away. Oh, why did I buy that? There was no need to buy that.
Tanks voll, Zündvorrichtung gereinigt.
It doesn't look like he's got too much here. Let's just sacrifice some Panzergrens, start making maneuvers.
Zum Schützenrodel aufgehen, mir nach. Höre Sie gut. Wachsam bleiben. Sanitäter! Klar zum Gefecht, Herr Kommandant. Fertig machen zum Sprung, wir greifen gleich.
Bring that over.
Motor läuft. Verstanden, Ende.
Try and get that down as well.
Volle Geschwindigkeit. Schlachtflieger bereit. Wir stehen unter Beschuss. Jawohl. Panzerkompanie bereit. Kehrt machen, Fahrer! Steht zu Diensten. Kehren zurück zum Fliegerhorst. Feinde im Vorfeld.
Okay, we got rid of the half track. I'm a little worried there's just... It's going to somehow cut off my spawn. Okay, so surrender there onto the Panzergren. It weakens my left. I probably shouldn't have made that move, but I did. Get both the half tracks helping out. Yeah, he knows I've switched now. I'm worried that stuff's still coming in from this side, so Tankos Can't really clear that area while the tankos exist. Down goes the half track. Okay, let's pour into this area now.
Meine Herren, verbrannte Erde.
There's Vedka.
Bajonette aufplatzen.
Shame there.
Zweiter einsatzbereit.
Okay, Ognos are coming in.
Lanzer zur Stelle. Verdammt, hier ist ganz schön was los. Ihre Befehle, Kommandant?
T-3476.
Wahrer Gefechtsgeschwindigkeit. Leitstelle, bereit zum Angriff.
He's going to block off that reinforcement road if I'm not careful, so...
Noch ist die Luftwaffe nicht am Ende. Kehrt zurück zum Fliegerhorst. Taxi bereit. Der Motor überhitzt. Und ich ebenso. Wie ist die Lage? Hier aus beiden Feind gesichtet. Wir wurden getroffen. Marschgeschwindigkeit erreicht.
Try and get the Panzer 3L out of there, because I don't think a long-range engagement is worth it.
Zum Zündeln.
Like, we have made a push here.
Es hat mich erwischt.
Just push forward the MGs.
Unten bleiben.
The Panzer's there.
Für den Transport. Es hat mich erwischt.
We do need to hold this town, though.
Abmarsch und verteidigt.
Could have done with my tank gun up there.
Machen uns bereit, Herr Kommandant. Los, Jungs, Augen auf.
What else could I use? Probably some artillery.
Lass mich raus! Ich will da raus! Lass mich gehen! Wie lautet der Plan? Angriff! Höre Sie gut.
Okay, I think there's stuff in this area, so we'll unload and move on foot.
Brauchen Sie Feuer.
MG42 down, we're going to lose that flag. It's a bit of a shame. I don't want them spotted either.
Verbrannte Erde.
I'm a little bit worried about that Panzer 3M there. I also wouldn't mind a long-range tank somewhere around there. And some reinforcements in there.
Getroffen. Verstanden. Hände. Wahrer Gefechtsgeschwindigkeit. Kampfbereit.
Get our tanks across and the grill as well.
Aufgerödelt.
There's definitely something in there. Two-man Ognos squad. We need some big guns. Shame the half track went down.
Jawohl, Kommandant. Marsch! Aber achten Sie auf unsere Flanken. Verstanden. Hände. Es hat mich erwischt. Feind direkt vor eigener Stelle.
Go for a Panzer 4H.
Sind wir hinüber.
Okay, he's going to take that area back. Going to need some Panzer Grens in there. I think the Boy to Starling could be up.
Rennen.
to help out on that right-hand side. Oh, look at this left, though. Whoa, what are you doing? Back away. Infantry on the left would really help me out. But at the moment, I don't actually need it. Ooh, let's try and get one of those up on the hill.
Aufgerödelt und bereit zum Einsatz.
Taxi, dort müssen wir hin.
Didn't mean for that Pat 43 to go there, but it has, so it can stay in the area.
Motor läuft.
It looks like he's making a push back in there.
Höre Sie gut.
Off map could be perfect, couldn't it, to smash his counter push?
Bereit, Hauptmann.
Wir haben Verluste erlitten.
It's a shame that went down.
Gute Jagd, Korridor.
Sanitäter!
Let's bring another grill in. What just went down? Something over here. Do with like an anti-tank gun on the left, or... Oh, we were going to save for the Starling, weren't we? Another flat gun would be really nice.
Feind gesichtet. Seid auf der Hut.
I'm going to push my half-track forward slightly. I'm worried about stuff coming in that forest as well.
Scheiße, das war knapp. Zu Befehl.
Don't think I can tackle you.
Achtet auf Piraten.
Hope he just survives.
Führe Tiefflugangriff durch.
Oh, his track's broken, damn it.
Die Gruppe erwartet
The infantry will hold.
Wie lautet der Plan?
I'm going to leave the half-track in there.
Jawohl, Hauptmann.
Feind auf der Hut.
Marschbereitschaft hergestellt.
Oh, weapons jam. Okay. I really want that boy to Starling, but I also think we want an off-map and some... Oh, shoot.
Es hat mich erwischt.
Höre Sie gut.
Man, the stuff that we need. He's got a really nice line
Der
there.
Kommandant. Los, Jungs. Augen auf.
So I feel like I need to try and reinforce that.
Kontakt.
We got a 16-8. We just need to hold 16-8. These T-34-85s at the moment are just a little bit too strong for me.
Steht zu Diensten. Wir wurden getroffen. Ihre Befehle, Kommandant?
Just trying to get my half-tracks into cover.
Das ist nicht mehr
I'm
auszuhalten.
going to try and 2-on-1 this 85.
Aber achten Sie auf unsere Flanken. Achtung, der Feind ist in der Nähe. Zu Ihren Diensten, Herr Kommandant. An dieser Position müssen wir raus. Steht zu Diensten.
Oh, there is an infantry there. Okay, that's good.
Zieh den Arsch an, Hans.
Feind gesichtet.
Still got a 15-9. Okay, here's the movement
Infanterie
on the
bereit.
right.
Sanitäter!
Down goes...
Mitten ins Schwarze.
These guys just aren't in the right spot. Oh, didn't want that.
Bereit.
Zieh den Arsch an, Hans.
Oh, Grill, you move yourself over there, my son.
Haha, das hat
Oh, a lot of tanks are moving in that area.
Sanitäter! Ja. Seid wachsam, Soldaten.
mitten ins Schwarze.
Just trying to keep everything going. Bring the boy to Stalin out.
Es hat mich erwischt! Wir sind bereit, Herr Kommandant.
Well, we have lost that position. We've lost the tanks over there as well.
Wir geben auf!
Gute Jagd, Korridor.
Den Feind hat's zerlegt. Es ist mir eine Ehre, die Männer anzuführen. Feind gesichtet. Seid auf der Hut.
Get away from, and I want it off map, but I also am a little bit concerned as well. We'll start to push forward here.
Wie ist die Lage?
Den Feind hat's zerlegt.
Wir wurden getroffen. Jawohl, Kommandant. Breiter Aufwand. Abmarsch und erhöhte Aufmerksamkeit.
Shame we haven't got any anti-tank apart from this thing up here. I can certainly take out T-34 T-5s. Okay, Tankos in there.
Stets zu Diensten.
Flak bereit. Köpfe runter!
Die Gruppe erwartet ihre Befehle.
Bring half to support Stalin. Some more anti-air might be good, mightn't it? And some AT over there.
Feind gesichtet. Seid auf
Yeah,
der
we
Hut.
had enough.
Wie ist die Lage?
Let's not lose those Panzerfaust, because we should be able to get the Panzerfaust kill here.
Scheiße, das war knapp.
Come on, how has he not got that Panzerfaust kill?
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle? Bajonette aufpflanzen. Wie ist die Lage? Scheiße, das war knapp. Ja, Hauptmann. Wie den Arsch an Hals. Raketenwerfer kann eingesetzt werden.
Okay, let's work from that. Boy to Stalin's in.
Viel Feind, viel Air.
Wir können nicht mehr.
Die Gruppe erwartet ihre Befehle.
Verdammt!
You need some more anti-air, remember?
Infanterie bereit.
Okay, we're still 17-7 here, thanks to the work of the half tracks.
Wie lautet der Plan?
Let's just try and ambush these guys here.
Infanterie bereit.
Sanitäter!
Volle Schwarze!
They were for arm and move, so I'm going to try and hit the ISU there.
Langsam zur Stelle.
Okay, looks like something got taken down. We can start to move forward with our little pocket of forces.
Rot 1 an alle. Funküberprüfung. Kommen.
Support that push.
Scheiße, das war knapp.
He can't get my infantry at the moment. Okay, I've got to find a way to get that. Let's bring you down the hill. But let's stop because the MG42 did it for me. Thank you. We got a unit here, look. Let's just put you in the windmill.
Ich mache zum Sprung. Die
Have you up on the
Geisteskarte.
hill.
An alle Einheiten. Feind gesichtet.
We played that game really well, I thought.
Ja, Hauptmann. Ruhe, Herren.
Yeah, there we go. Good work. Good work. 20 minutes, 59 seconds. 1001. Look, we traded negative. Wow. I thought we were... I'm not... like, I thought we were well up there. But we traded negative. I suppose we were taking a lot of territory. I was pushing quite a few half-tracks forwards as well, picking up flags that were then going to get taken out. We lost quite a few tanks as well, to be fair. The T-34-85s were more than a match for all of our tanks, apart from the boy to Stalin. But I think we did the right thing getting out the flat guns and the pack guns pretty early on that right-hand side. And we also did the right thing where my initial push was supposed to be right of the river on the very far right. And he actually, I think he countered that. So I think he guessed that's where I was going to go, and he countered that well. So then we sort of switched to the center left right town, and then we switched again to the center, and then we just kept moving left until we got so many flags that he was struggling. So then we could focus back on the right with his attention drawn away. And I think that worked really well there. So if at first you're trying to nail a position and you just get flat denied, as soon as I saw the bulk of forces coming down the right-hand side, I was thinking, this isn't going to go well. And when they were T-34-85s and I had Panzer 3s, it was kind of like, yeah, this definitely isn't going to go well. So let's just switch focus and go somewhere else. And that worked really well in this game. There's plenty of times when I don't do that. So I'm pointing it out because I'm quite pleased that I did that. Let's have a look at some of the kills. The grill did well for me. The grill is really powerful now. Sometimes in some games, I don't get great use out of it. Like I'll lose it really easily, and if you don't, then you can get some good results, and that grill helped us out. I think the Ju-87, yeah, I bought I think that was a mistake to buy 2 of those, and in the end, look, we only got an M2A1 kill. Oh, we did get a T-34-76 as well, but yeah, that buying the second one, I don't actually think I meant to do it. I think I just did it by impulse. I'm sure you guys understand. And what else do we have to look at? No other kind of like standout kills. The Panzer IV-H Führer with a weird name got the Su-85 kill. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, no like standout units apart from the early grill. Maybe this Panzergren. I think this was a guy in the town, I would guess, in the center right town. Might be in the very far right town. Yeah, I think that's probably where he was. And an early Flammenwerf that actually did very well. He actually did really well there. So good job on that Flammenwerf. So yeah, no massive standout kills. Let's have a quick look at the losses. The Rozvedka can be amazing because of those bazookas, but only picking up half tracks. So at least I wasn't losing tanks. I was just losing half tracks. What else do we have? Yeah, T-34-85s. Ah, the grill did go down in the end. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, more like if you look, his T-34-85s dominate me, really, but the rest of his forces not as dominating. Yeah, good game. I thought we did well. 20th Panzer. I definitely recommend this deck. Last week we had a not so fantastic time. This week, this is only the second game I've played. I think the deck's fine. I built it fine. It's a fantastic division. Thoroughly recommend it. It's basically, I'm going to cut out all the crap. That is basically what I'm going to say. I 100% recommend this division for beginners and new players. The problem with it is it's really good in 1v1 because you can get... The Panzer IVs are good tanks, but you do have to use them correctly. You can get outranged. That's the problem with this division. Like you saw there, the T-34-85s were more than a match. So if you just try and go tank on tank against a better tank, you're going to lose with this division. So you have to be aware of how you're engaging. But you have the other tools to back you up. It's not like in the previous division with the 9th Cav, whereas if you couldn't kind of fight with those Shermans, you were really struggling because the AT guns in A phase aren't great in the 9th Cav. I'm talking about the previous division in the 9th Cav. And then, you know, the airplanes, the Lag 3 rocket planes, they aren't fantastic. They're not like Ju-87 cluster planes where they're guaranteed one-hit kill. The lags aren't. So a lot of the time in that previous division, you don't have the kind of supporting units to back you up. Whereas in this division, you've got those supporting units. You've got the Flak 41. You've got the Pack 40s. You've got plenty of them. You've got lots of hard tracks to help out in the infantry engagements. You have the Boy to Stalin, you know, that can come out. The Ju-87 cluster planes, I'm not quite sure whether I mentioned them. So you do have a lot of good equipment to utilize if you can't get that tank engagement in your favor. And there's going to be a lot of times that it isn't going to go in your favor. So you've just got to know to work around that. But if you do, then this is a fantastic division. Another struggle for it is in the heavy forest. Now, I've particularly built this deck so that you don't really want to go anywhere near heavy forest. I've not given you any CQC infantry at all because the cards that you do get, they're kind of limited. So I'd just rather you get used to avoiding forest fights. And if you saw in this game, it was quite a good example. We used our flamethrowers to go in the forest and that was it. And then otherwise, we just sort of kept on the edge, spotted infantry and used the half tracks and the Panzergrens to just light them up. And then on the far left, we didn't go in that heavy forest on the far left because what was the point? We were going to lose. We were going to lose in that heavy forest to Tanko de Saniki. So there's just no point even going there. And if you get these basic concepts with the 20th Panzergrens, you are 100% going to have a successful time with them. You're going to enjoy playing the deck. And yeah, I definitely recommend this one. It's a base game division. Everybody gets access to it and you should use it. And it's like a top level competitive division as well. They use it all the time in Steel Division League. So it works. It definitely works. It's not just me saying that. It really is a great division. Now, I will say the more advanced competitive, you know, high skill level players will definitely play this division. They'll set the division up differently. They'll certainly have Ersatztruppen and Osttruppen in the deck. I'm pretty sure about that. You know, they will set it up differently, but for a beginner, new, less experienced, you know, casual player, this deck suits fine. So just go in there, have fun with it, enjoy your time with it. This is a division I can recommend you to go into quick play with. Yeah. The dog wants me to finish the video now. Thanks very much for watching. Leave your comments down below. Always happy to chat to you and in Discord as well. And if you want to hit that subscribe button, then please do. And hit the join button as well and get some perks like early access to videos. Thanks very much for watching. I am Alpha Bird. I will see you next time.